What's going on, guys? It's Greg here, aka NYPrepper. It is Tuesday, April 29th, 2025, and I have an emergency alert to share with you guys. Right now it is 14:24 Eastern Time here in the United States, and we have some major breaking news coming in from here in the US and from Pakistan and from Eastern Europe. So since midnight, we had 78 emergency action messages. These are nuclear codes. They're targeting information that's sent out to our nuclear forces. 78 of these nuclear codes transmitted since midnight, which is absolutely insane. I haven't heard this many since last year, when Israel and Iran were launching missiles at each other, and when all of that was going on, and when culinary night was happening. So something big is about to go down. I don't know if it's India and Pakistan. I don't know if it's related to Spain and Portugal with the big power outage. I want to update you guys on that. Also, I'm going to update you on Pakistan. But 78 emergency action messages in just about 12 hours is absolutely insane. So our nuclear forces here in the US are on maximum alert. And what you're looking at here is the flight path of a US nuclear war command and control plane that was in a standby pattern last night when all of these emergency action messages were being broadcasted, and it was basically doing a standby pattern here in the event that launch orders need to be transmitted to our submerged nuclear armed submarines right off the coast of New Jersey and Long Island. This is extremely unusual for one of these planes to be scrambled so late at night. This was like around 1 a.m. Eastern Time, 0100 Eastern Time, okay? This thing got scrambled from Patuxent River, okay, which is very, very unusual. So something has our nuclear forces on maximum alert. And this afternoon, we've had as many as 3 nuke sniffers airborne over the continental United States. We also had 2 B-52 nuclear bombers airborne. A B-1 strategic bomber is currently airborne, and a high-priority reconnaissance plane, a Combat Sentinel, also airborne as well, and a U.S. presidential doomsday plane is up in the air right now. But what's interesting is you can see that there were 2 nuke sniffers and a Combat Sentinel, a high-priority recon plane, relocated from Beale Air Force Base to Offutt Air Force Base, which is home of U.S. Strategic Command. Now, Beale Air Force Base is a very important base here in the U.S. It's considered to be a strategic base. So for them to move 2 nuke sniffers and a high-priority recon plane to the home of Strategic Command means that something is about to go down, and they want those planes there in case they need to deploy them to different parts of the U.S. or the world. And also here you can see 2 B-52s over Louisiana and a B-1 that just took off from Grand Forks in North Dakota. And then here you can see a closer look at the Doomsday plane, which is still up in the air over Lincoln, Nebraska, doing touch and goes. It was also relocated from Beale. So very, very strange. So a Doomsday plane, 2 nuke sniffers, and a high-priority recon plane relocated from Beale to Offutt Air Base. And we have a nuke sniffer patrolling the Central Plains right now, okay? So here you can see the nuke sniffer over Iowa, and then the strategic bomber, the B-1, over the Black Hills, and then 2 B-52s over Louisiana. Look at this, guys. This B-52 is doing like dozens and dozens of loops there. So our nuclear forces are on maximum alert for some reason. And Citibank has been hit by a nationwide outage today, which is interesting because just yesterday we had that nationwide power outage in Spain and Portugal. And Putin is reportedly demanding control of the 4 regions of Ukraine that he has occupied. And this is being reported by various sources. And we're hearing of intense armed clashes between Indian and Pakistani forces along the line of control in the Kashmir region of India. So this would be the 6th day in a row that they've been trading small arms fire, but it looks like they're now starting to use mortars. And there was some video footage released that I cannot share on YouTube, unfortunately, showing the Pakistani forces launching mortars at Indian Army border checkpoints at the line of control in the Kashmir region, and some really intense gun battles last night. So it looks like India and Pakistan are about to go to war with each other. And we are also hearing of a major explosion at a defense factory in Isfahan in Iran. Now, Isfahan is where one of Iran's nuclear facilities is located. It's one of several of Iran's nuclear enrichment sites. You have Isfahan, Fordow, Natanz, Arak, and there's some other ones, but those are the biggest. So that's very interesting. And then yesterday we had this unusual fire in Tehran, and then of course the massive kaboom at the largest port in Iran over the weekend. Some missile fuel apparently caught fire and went kaboom. So somebody is clandestinely attacking Iran. There was also a massive cyber attack against Iran that was supposedly thwarted by the Iranian military. And Spain's prime minister said the cause of the blackout remains unknown. And the power company in Spain said there was a very large oscillation in the electrical voltages, first in the Spanish system, which then spread to the Portuguese system. And Spain's High Court will investigate whether a cyber attack may have caused one of Europe's most severe blackouts, which plunged the Iberian Peninsula into darkness. The investigation comes despite Spain's grid operator ruling out a cyber attack in its preliminary assessment of the outage, which prompted travel chaos and left many without water, Wi-Fi, or mobile network for hours. If a cyber attack were found to be behind the blackout, Judge Jorge Calama would investigate it as a crime of terrorism, a court document showed. Despite power being returned around Spain and Portugal on Tuesday morning, travel chaos continued into its second day, with large, bustling crowds still in Madrid's train station. Around 500 flights were canceled in total due to the blackout. So this is one of the reasons why we prepare, guys. This is why you need to have a bug out bag. If you live in a city, if you work in a city, you need to think about these things. What would you do if suddenly everything went dark? Okay, do you even have a flashlight? Okay, or you're just going to use your cell phone light? All right, make sure you have 2 small flashlights with you at all times when you're in any kind of a big city. Make sure you have just some basic supplies, food, water. A lot of these people in Spain were stranded when their trains broke down and they had to, walk in the heat, or they had to walk out of tunnels underground, which were pitch black. So make sure you guys are prepared, because I think this is the beginning of what could be more of these random power outages. And the Indian Prime Minister has ordered a response against Pakistan after several security meetings today. So what you're looking at here is the Indian Prime Minister in the middle with the orange vest, and he met with his top generals, as you could see here. And so he has ordered a response against Pakistan. And apparently he gave operational freedom to the Indian Army. So that is absolutely huge news. And Pakistan's defense minister said today that he believes an Indian military invasion to be imminent, but did not offer any more details as to why he thinks this. And he also said that a war with India could break out over the next several days. And diplomats from America, Britain, Australia, and China have sent their families home from Pakistan to their respective countries amid the ongoing tensions between India and Pakistan. So diplomats in Pakistan are sending their families home because it's unsafe. Okay, specifically American, British, Australian, and Chinese diplomats. And this update was sponsored by EMP Shield. Guys, EMP Shield has created a special discount just for you, the listeners of the NYPrepper channel. If you go to empshield.com and use the promo code NYPrepper, you can get 15% off your entire order. And why do you need an EMP Shield? Well, this is a special device to protect your vehicle, your RV, your solar generators, your radios from an electromagnetic pulse, which could be caused by a solar flare or potentially a rogue country like North Korea detonating an electromagnetic pulse weapon over the United States that's mounted onto a satellite. So protect your vehicles, protect your RV, protect your radios, protect your generators with an EMP Shield. Use my promo code NYPrepper to get 15% off. Installation is super simple. This is a veteran-owned business, 100% American-made, and the EMP Shields have been tested by the military, okay? And free shipping is included to the entire continental United States. And the link and the promo code are in the description below this video. And last night there was heavy aerial activity reported over Kashmir in India. We're hearing that 48 tourist destinations will close in Kashmir after intelligence has reported that there could be more terrorist attacks. And India is considering closing its airspace to Pakistani airlines and banning Pakistani ships from docking at Indian ports. And there's a number of NOTAMs and restricted airspace zones in India. Now, we're also seeing fresh NOTAMs and restricted zones pop up in Pakistan with a new notice closing air routes between Lahore and Islamabad from April 28th to April 30th for major air warfare exercises. And we're hearing that there's heavy military movement and tight air patrolling happening in both countries along the border. Okay, so Pakistan closing down this large area of airspace for a warfare exercise, an air warfare exercise from April 28th through the 30th. And we're seeing some more video footage coming out of Pakistani Air Force fighter jets conducting non-stop sorties at the Saidu Air Base. And Pakistan successfully shot down an Indian drone along the line of contact in the Kashmir region, but they started to shell the Indian Army border checkpoints, and I cannot show the video footage of that, unfortunately. And the U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said today that Iran's aggressive development of missiles and other weapons capabilities imperils the safety of the U.S. and our partners. And here we have some new video footage coming out of Pakistan, and you can see this train full of tanks. Okay, look at this, guys. Hundreds of tanks, okay, in Pakistan being moved to the border of India. Absolutely insane. Look at that, okay? Absolutely insane. Wow. And France and Poland will sign a new mutual security treaty on May 9th, according to French President Emmanuel Macron. That's very interesting. And here we have some footage coming out of Pakistan showing the Pakistani Air Force conducting non-stop sorties out of the Saidu Air Force Base. Check it out. So Pakistan is gearing up for war. Here we have a picture of the Indian Army training some Indian police officers. Looks like they're training them on how to use machine guns and maybe sniper rifles. Okay, so India is gearing up for war. And we have a new satellite image coming out of Diego Garcia, taken April 19th, 10 days ago, still showing 6 US B-2 stealth bombers on the runway there. And also you can see these 4 shelters here, which are for these stealth bombers. So potentially there could be as many as 10 stealth bombers, assuming that these 4 shelters are filled with more stealth bombers, and 6 of them are sitting out here because there's no room in the shelters. Okay, so this is very concerning. Also, we have a U.S. Ohio class sub, the USS Georgia, which was spotted at Diego Garcia, and this is a strategic submarine. There's 4 of these that carry 154 Tomahawk missiles, either conventionally or nuclear armed, or both, a combination of both. So this is clearly a sign that the U.S. is preparing to strike Iran. Okay, the USS Georgia loaded with 154 Tomahawks, and then you got potentially 10 stealth bombers here. And J.D. Vance, the U.S. Vice President, said Ukraine will not win if military action continues for the next few years, but a nuclear escalation scenario is possible. There were some explosions heard last night near Novorossiysk, which is where one of Russia's major ports and naval bases is located. Russia is preparing for a military conflict with NATO after the war in Ukraine ends, according to the Wall Street Journal. A ceasefire in Ukraine would allow Russia to carry out a limited operation against the Baltic states within 2 to 3 years, according to the Carnegie Center in Berlin. And what's interesting is a lot of the NATO think tanks and experts and generals were saying that, oh, we have 5 years, Now they're talking about 2 to 3 years, okay? And I think it's much less than 2 to 3 years. And the Russian armed forces are expanding military bases in Petrozavodsk and other areas near the border with Finland, and are also planning to transfer additional troops to the border with European countries, according to the Wall Street Journal. Russia is already building new warehouses and housing for the military and laying a new railway along the border of Estonia, Finland, and Norway, expanding existing railway lines in this region. Wow. Okay, so they're laying new train tracks down along the border of the Baltics and Scandinavia, and the reason why is so they can relocate forces in a war, in an invasion. Okay, the main way that Russia moves equipment around is through rail lines. Okay, so they're clearly preparing for a war with the Baltics and Finland and Scandinavia. And the U.S. Army could be in line to get nearly $640 million in extra funding for new medium-range ballistic missiles, including ones capable of hitting ships at sea. Work on medium-range ballistic missiles, a long-range strike capability the Army has not had since the end of the Cold War, is one of a slew of efforts that would be accelerated by a $150 billion defense spending package recently proposed by members of Congress. The Army is already looking at a medium-range version of its precision strike missile, short-range ballistic missile, but the legislation on the table now may also point to a new design in the works. When it comes to Army MRBMs, the spending plan includes 4 separate provisions amounting to a combined $639 million, including $175 million for the production capacity expansion for next-generation Army medium-range ballistic missiles, $50 million for the accelerated development of Army next-generation medium-range anti-ship ballistic missiles, $114 million for the production of Army next-generation medium-range ballistic missiles, and $300 million for the production of Army medium-range ballistic missiles. So they want to accelerate the production of medium-range ballistic missiles, guys. Okay, this is something we haven't seen since the 1980s, when the U.S. and Russia had these medium-range missiles deployed in Europe. Okay, so this is very, very concerning, and it's a sign that the situation in Europe is escalating, and NATO is on the verge of war with Russia, okay? And this was reported by the War Zone, so it's a credible source. So NATO has been preparing for war with Russia for the last few months, guys. They've been sending out these emergency pamphlets to their people. Okay, they're building defense lines in Poland and the Baltics. So Europe is gearing up, okay? They passed a $1 trillion emergency defense fund, okay? So it's coming, guys. It's just a matter of time. And the transfer of M1 Abrams tanks from Australia to Ukraine has been stalled due to U.S. resistance, and France, Germany, and the UK will not hesitate to reimpose sanctions against Iran if European security is threatened by Iran's nuclear program, the French foreign minister said at the UN on Monday. And an American F-18 fighter jet fell off the USS Harry Truman aircraft carrier into the water while trying to land after a mission over Yemen. The U.S. Navy confirmed yesterday the pilot was not harmed. So it looks like we might have lost the fighter jet. Hopefully it was able to float. I don't know if those fighter jets can float or not, and if they were able to maybe lift it up with some helicopters or something. I don't know. Or maybe it just sank to the bottom of the ocean, but that's very serious. And Mark Carney was elected Canada's next Prime Minister. Carney's Liberal Party won enough seats in Canada's 45th federal election to maintain control, and basically every province in Canada voted for the Liberals with the exception of Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and Alberta, okay? And what you're looking at here are some flight paths from last night when the EAMs were going crazy. So we had a B-1 strategic bomber take off from Grand Forks, and it went to California, and it did a patrol along the northern California coast, which is very, very unusual. This was like after midnight Eastern time. Okay, it went all the way to California, flew along the coast, and then went back. So there must have been some kind of a threat over here. And then we also had a U.S. Navy recon drone patrol the Gulf of America and the Mexican border and the southeastern U.S. coastline. Very, very unusual. And that's the second time in the last week that we've seen that kind of a patrol. And also we had a P-8 Poseidon sub-hunter flying really low off the coast of West Palm Beach near the Bahamas, suggesting that there was some kind of a submarine here off the coast of Florida. And then here we have some video footage coming out of Spain yesterday. You can see people panic bought everything from their local supermarkets. You can see there's absolutely zero water left. All the water is completely gone. This is why you need to always keep at least 20 gallons of drinking water in your house. Okay, I always recommend to people have at least 20 gallons of drinking water in your primary abode. Okay, and then here we have a picture of travelers stranded at an airport, and they're sleeping on the ground over here. Absolutely insane. And here we have a picture from a hospital where the power went out, and you can see it's just totally dark with the exception of some daylight coming in. Now, these hospitals are supposed to have large standby diesel generators that are supposed to flip on, but because of Spain's policy on fossil fuels, I don't know if they even have diesel generators at their hospitals, which is very dangerous. Spain phased out all of their nuclear power plants, just like Germany. So who knows? And here's a picture from another supermarket. You can see empty shelves, people looking for stuff in the middle of the pitch black. Here you can see a massive traffic jam. I'm not sure exactly where this was. I think somewhere in Madrid or Lisbon, okay? And then here you can see a train underground, a tunnel here completely dark. But that's the latest breaking news that I have. I might be back later on tonight with a live update. So tune into my 24/7 live stream for continuing updates on our nuclear forces. I have multiple radios plugged into the live stream, including my own ham radio, which has a 400-foot antenna. So you can listen to all these nuclear codes live in real time. And you can also get breaking updates from my excellent moderators, including Ross. So until later on, take care, God bless, and don't forget the 3 Ps: prepare, practice, and persevere.